Streaming now.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the August 6th work session for the Franklin City School Board. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight. We will begin with a motion to come out of closed session. Do we have a motion to come out of closed?
Ward 3, this is Andrea Leonard. I move that the school board, having been in closed session pursuant to a proper motion, come out of the closed session.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion? Moving by ward, and we'll start with Mr. Holt. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, nays have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, aye.
Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Ward 5, Andrea Shelton, aye.
At large, Carrie Johnson, aye.
Ward 2, Amy Phillips, aye. That motion carries. Next up is certification of our closed session. Do we have a certification?
Whereas the Franklin City School Board has convened in a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.2-3712.d of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Franklin City School Board hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification applies, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of certification signify by saying aye, and of course, nays have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, Bob, aye.
Ward 3, Andrea Leonard, aye.
Ward 4, Marshall Williams, aye.
Ward 5, Andrea Shelton, aye.
At large, Carrie Johnson, aye.
Ward 2, Amy Phillips, aye. That motion carries. Next up is motions from closed session. I believe we have a personnel agenda. Do we have a motion in regards to our personnel agenda?
Ward
Marshall
1,
Williams, Ward 4, move to approve the personnel agenda as presented.
second. Ward
We have a
1,
motion and we have a second. Any discussion? Again, moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and the nays have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, aye.
Ward 3, Andrea Leonard, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. Personnel agenda is passed. Next up is approval of our agenda. Do we have a motion in regards to our agenda for the evening?
Excuse me, I believe we have another motion from closed session.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's
I
okay.
believe you are correct, Dr. Hall Leonard. I just jumped
It's
right
okay.
over that.
It's all right. It's okay. I move to approve the non-resident enrollment applications 001, 002, 003, and 004.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second and a third and a fourth. Any discussion? Moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Nays have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, aye.
Ward 3, Andrea Leonard, aye.
Ward 4, Marshall Williams, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. I think that's got us straight from close now.
Yeah.
All right, next up is approval of our agenda. Do we have a motion in regards to our agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, nays have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, aye.
Ward 3, Andrea Leonard, aye.
Ward 4, Marshall Williams, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Carrie Johnson at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries as well. Next up is revisitation of our organization of the board. Back at our first session in July, we chose to table some items until tonight's meeting. Excuse me. The first item of which is selection of the vice chair as part of our organizational plan. Is there any action anyone would like to take on this? Any discussion in regards to this?
Well, I guess this is Andrea Leonard. We still do not have a full board. So at this time, I believe according to VSBA and the code that the chair can serve and designate a person in his or her absence to serve for them if they were not able to attend a meeting. So it may be best that the school board waits till you have a full board. That's just me. And then if something happened wherein the chair was not able to be at the meeting, the chair could designate.
I have no problem with that recommendation.
Does anyone else have anything else? Any other questions, comments, any other preference?
I'm fine with that recommendation.
Ward 4, fine.
Okay. All right, and I as well am fine with that. That way all board members, when seated, do have input on that. If it is in agreement by the board for now, I would like to ask Mr. Holt if he would be willing to, if something were to happen to me, because of course in the era we're in right now with COVID, I feel like we need to have some plan in place in case I'm not able to be at the meeting. Being that Mr. Holt does have experience being the board chair and serving in that capacity, I would like to just deem him as able to serve in the instance of my absence.
I would be willing to do that at your direction.
And would the board be comfortable with that as well?
Yes, and it's okay to entertain a motion. I move to accept the chair's recommendation that Mr. Robert Holt would serve in the chair's absence in the case of an emergency until there is a full school board.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Nays have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, aye.
Ward 3, Andrea Leonard, aye.
Ward 4, Marshall Williams, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
At large, Carrie Johnson, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Holt, for being willing to step up and serve in case we have the need arise.
You're welcome.
All right. Next up is organizational plan of the board. Ms. Moore, if you could move on down to that.
I can't scroll.
Oh, can't scroll. Okay. We did at our first meeting back in July, we also chose to table that. There were a few spots that we did fill. I know the Appomattox Regional Governor's School Board is still meeting. They actually had a meeting last week. Some of these I'm not sure, like the Governor's School of the Arts Board, or the Hampton Roads Educational Telecommunication Association, if they are still having ongoing meetings. But I do know that some of these, there are meetings that are still happening. Dr. Hall Leonard, do you have any insight on the Governor's School for the Arts Board when their next meeting is scheduled for?
We have not, I have not received correspondence. I gave the most recent correspondence at, I believe, 2 meetings ago. I gave an update for CSEP as well as for the Governor's School of the Arts Joint Board, but we have not received notification for any upcoming meetings.
Okay. Okay. So it sounds like probably the only one that's having continual meetings going on would be the Appomattox Regional Governor's School right now.
I do know that Dr. Warren agreed. She was going to retire. She agreed to stay on due to COVID. And so she did announce that she would be working with the school division superintendents.
Okay. Given the CSEP, the Governor's School for the Arts, and Appomattox Regional Governor's School tie directly into ongoing instruction because, of course, the Governor's School for the Arts and Appomattox Regional Governor's School both will have students going back soon. So I'm going to gander there will be communication. Did the board want to table this again until we have a full board? Did we want to look at a few of these and put someone interim in a few of these spots until we can get a full board so that we have representation? How does the board want to proceed?
I have a question for Mr. Holt. Mr. Holt, you have served before as the representative to CSEP, and I believe while you were serving CSEP, initially, I was serving as a representative to the Governor's School. Are you comfortable with rolling back into that position for CSEP?
Yes, I would. I enjoyed that role, and if you're willing to step away, I'll be happy to step in.
Yes, and so I know I was a representative for CSEP after Mr. Holt left the board. And so I'm willing to step away from that because I know he has extensive experience for CSEP. And until such time as my role ends, I can continue in the Governor's School for the Arts Joint Board, and I'm willing to reach out to Dr. Warren.
All right. Is there anybody else that was interested in CSEP? Hearing none, does someone want to make a motion in regards to the representative for CSEP?
I move that Mr. Robert Holt be the representative to the Southeastern Cooperative Education Program. This is Andrea.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye, and nays have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, aye.
Ward 3, Andrea Leonard, aye.
Ward 4, Marshall Williams, aye.
Dr. Shelton, are you there?
Andrea, she was on mute. Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Okay. At large, Carrie Johnson, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. All right, so Governor's School for the Arts Joint Board, Dr. Hall Leonard has said that she is willing to continue until we have a full board and make a future appointment. I guess, Dr. Hall Leonard, if you do not mind, I'm going to ask as well, is there anyone that is on the board right now that is absolutely chomping at the bit to sit in that role? Okay. Hearing none, do we have a motion in regards to Dr. Hall Leonard remaining on the Governor School for the Arts Joint Board until we have a full board in place and can determine a future representative for that?
Bob Holt, Ward 1, I so move.
All right. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second and a third. Any discussion? All right, moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, nays have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, aye.
Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Carrie Johnson at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye as well. So that one is done as well for now. And then the last one that we had that is still meeting is the representative to the Appomattox Regional Governor's School, which I currently am in that role, and I have no problem continuing in that role unless there is someone that would rather step in the interim. Does anyone have a suggestion on that beyond my continuing to fill that?
I suggest you continue to expertly fill that role.
I don't know about expertly, but
Notice I said expert.
So I'm going to take that as a motion, Mr. Holt, and I'll second it.
all right. We have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion? Moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and nays have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, aye.
Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Carrie Johnson at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries as well. All right. So those three, once we have a full board, we will come back and revisit those. The remainder of those, and if you've had an opportunity to take a look at the organizational plan, Miss Moore, I have to thank her. She went through and kind of tweaked the format and layout of the organizational plan so that for each committee, we knew which ones were the legally required advisory committees and which one were the division related committees. And also it breaks down the purpose of each one of the committees as outlined in the governance handbook and the meeting schedule. How did the board want to proceed with the remainder of this? Do we want to table it again until we have a full board?
I move to table it until we have a full board.
I second.
We have a
All of
motion. We have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion? One thing I did want to bring up, and I will push back and challenge to board members.
What is it?
The additional, the FCPS.
Is it Adriana?
advisory
Because I don't want
committee.
to ask Aeneas again. Is that gas can?
If we will, as board members, let's look at those, because as time evolves, some of these committees that we have may not be as relevant as what they once were. And some of these, we may actually need committees that we actually don't have in place. So I just challenge the board members over the next coming weeks until we do have a full board that we look at these and jot down some notes and feedback as to if some of these you think they aren't relative anymore. If there's something, maybe an area where we aren't having attention that maybe we should, that would be my only recommendation as we move forward with the organizational plan. All right, so that being said, we have a motion on the floor to table, and I think I heard a second. Who was my second?
Dr. Hall Leonard.
Gotcha.
Yes.
All right, so that's my second. Any further discussion? If not, moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, nays have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, aye.
Ward 3, Andrea Leonard, aye.
Ward 4, Marshall Williams, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. So that motion carries as well. All right, next up is VSBA Code of Conduct for School Board. We still do not have a full board. And all of us should be aware of what is contained in the Code of Conduct for school board members. How would the board like to proceed? Would we like to go ahead and all adopt this and then come back and revisit and adopt it again once we have a full board? Would we rather table it and wait until we have a full board? How would we like to proceed on this?
This is Andrea. I think it's appropriate at this time to go ahead, since it's a new fiscal year, to go ahead and adopt the Code of Conduct for school board members. And then once there's a full board, come back and visit it again.
Dr.
I second
Hall-Leonard?
that.
All right, we have a motion on the floor and we have a second. Is there any discussion on that? Well, before we do proceed, Ms. Moore, would you go through and read that for us so that it is notated in the record? And then we will vote on it.
Sure. The VSBA Code of Conduct for School Board Members. As a member of my local school board, I will strive to be an advocate for students and to improve public education. And to that end, 1, I will have integrity in all matters and support the full development of all children and the welfare of the community, commonwealth, and nation. 2, I will attend scheduled board meetings. 3, I will come to board meetings informed concerning the issues under consideration. 4, I will make policy decisions based on the available facts and appropriate public input. 5, I will delegate authority for the administration of the schools to the superintendent and establish a process for accountability of administrators. 6, I will encourage individual board member expression of opinion and establish an open, two-way communication process with all segments of the community. 7, I will communicate in accordance with board policies, public reaction, and opinion regarding board policies and school programs to the full board and superintendent. 8, I will bring about desired changes through legal and ethical procedures, upholding and enforcing all laws, state regulations, and court orders pertaining to schools. 9, I will refrain from using the board position for personal or partisan gain and avoid any conflict of interest or the appearance of impropriety. 10, I will respect the confidentiality of privileged information and make no individual decisions or comments that may compromise the board or administration. 11, I will be informed about current educational issues through individual study and participation in appropriate programs, such as those sponsored by my state and national school board associations. 12, I will always remember that the foremost concern of the board is to improve and enhance the teaching and learning experience for all students in the public schools of Virginia. Therefore, I will always strive to demonstrate appropriate behavior or conduct as a public school board member.
All right, Ms. Moore has read that, so it is in the record, and we have a motion and a second before us. So moving by ward, all those in favor of adopting this signify by saying aye, and of course, nays have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, aye.
Ward 3, Andrea Leonard, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. We have adopted that. So we will revisit and go through that again once we have a full board seated so that we are all aware and on the same page. And then we'll go through the fun process of getting us all to sign it. All right. Next up is compliance officer and alternate compliance officer. We had this come up a few months back where we were looking at our policy on harassment and grievances, and we were looking at the complaint procedure. And within that policy, it lists a compliance officer and an alternate compliance officer. And within the code, it does not, within the policy, it does not refer to a particular person, but it does refer to a particular title. So within, if you can bring that up, Ms. Moore. And it's on page 3. It initially had said that the Franklin City School Board has designated the Director of Human Resources as the compliance officer. And then the alternate compliance officer was the Supervisor of Pupil Support Services. In looking at this and going back through that, Dr. Sterling has suggested that the both roles be changed to the compliance officer being the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Federal Programs, and then the alternate compliance officer being designated as the Assistant Superintendent of Operations. Does anyone have any questions? Is there any discussion about this? The intent is cleaning up the policy so that it is clear who is serving in those roles, so that should the situation arise, it is clearly defined who that would go to.
I like the recommendations. My only question is, how does the school division ensure that new staff that are hired are aware of the policies, and are these policies reviewed with them so that they know the procedures?
Dr.
Is that,
Sterling,
should that be, yeah, Dr.
Dr.
Question for
Sterling,
Dr.
would you
Sterling.
respond to that?
Yes, it has not been a practice in the past, but because we are changing the policy, all employees will have the updated policy. But I will take that recommendation as the new professional development schedule rolls out. We will have HR, because this directly affects employees, have them go over the policy and sign off that they received it.
And I also, this is Ms. Johnson. This is in the policy, but there is an employee handbook with the grievance procedure and the such is in there. So this would need to be updated in there as well. So if all of the new hires receive that, then it would be in there as well.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. We'll update that.
So would it be a practice? This is Andrea Leonard. So would it be a practice then for new hires to sign off on the employee handbook, that they've received and reviewed the employee handbook?
And most divisions, you go through it with them and then you sign off at the end. It hasn't been a consistent practice at Franklin, but I think we need to ensure that it is a part of our onboarding every year for new and current employees.
Thank you.
I'll make that happen.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments in regards to the proposed changes? Hearing none, do we have a motion in regards to the compliance officer and the alternate compliance officer?
I make a motion that we accept the policy as stated for the compliance officer and the alternate compliance officer.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just want to make sure that we're referring to, this is policy GB, equal employment opportunity, non-discrimination.
Correct and duly noted.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor moving by ward signify by saying aye. And of course, nays have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, aye.
Ward 3, Andrea Leonard, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Carrie Johnson at large, aye.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. All right. Moving up. Good gracious, I can't believe it's taking us this long to get here. To the consent agenda. There's only 3 items within the consent agenda tonight. And just a quick overview, we have purchase order 21-051. That is for painting at SP Morton Elementary and at Joseph P. King Middle School. We have purchase order 21-088. That is for painting at Franklin High School. And we have, and then the other item that we have is the Franklin City Public Schools 2020-2021 Emergency Response Plan. This was just updates to personnel that were listed in there as the contacts. I do see one change that will need to be made, unfortunately, and that would be under SP Morton Elementary School. Beyond that, Dr. Sterling, did you want, or Miss Moore, either one, did you want to highlight what had changed? Is it just the, from what I could tell, it's just the personnel that are listed?
Yeah, I see 1 or 2 changes I need to make as well.
Okay. So how would we like to?
So do we want to, oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead, Ms. Phillips.
How would you like to proceed then? Would you prefer that we table this, that we pull this to get changes made and then come back and vote on it?
I think that would be the smart thing to do. So
I agree.
So we will, what we'll need is a motion to pull this from the consent agenda, and then we'll vote on the consent agenda and vote on tabling this. Is there someone that would like to make a motion?
I thought I heard Mr. Hope.
The Emergency Response Plan 2020 to 2021 for some minor corrections.
I second.
We have a motion and a second in regards to the emergency response plan. Any discussion? All those in favor moving by ward signify by saying aye, and nays of course have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, aye.
Ward 3, Andrea Leonard, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Carrie Johnson at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. So that motion is tabled. Do we have a motion in regards to the remainder of the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I was thinking that we gave the superintendent permission to spend up to $50,000 on a purchase order last time. So are these necessary?
These were prior to that so gracious appointment. So these were prior to.
Okay.
So do we have a motion in regards to the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated.
We have a
With
motion.
the omission of the emergency response plan.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of approval of the consent agenda with the removal of the emergency response plan, please signify by saying aye. And of course, nays have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, aye.
Ward 3, Andrea Leonard, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. Up next would be the report of the superintendent.
Excuse me.
Yes,
Before we
ma'am.
move, yes, this is Andrea Lynn. Before we move to the report of the superintendent, can we back up? I asked a question after Ms. Shelton, Dr. Shelton, made the motion for 3.4.
Okay.
For clarification, I said we're referring to policy GB, but I did not say, but that motion also, I believe, covered the change to policy GBA, JFHA as well.
That is correct, because it does state the compliance officer in that.
Yeah, it did. And so my question is, do we need to go back, or we just needed to make that point of clarity that that motion was for both? Because when I asked the question, I said, so this covered policy GB. I did not note that it also covered policy GBA, JFHA.
We can make a motion if you want in regards to GBA, but it's changing who is deemed as the compliance officer. So of course that would have to be changed in every policy regardless.
I don't think it needs another one. I think compliance officer is understood to be the same throughout. I don't think, Dr. Hall Leonard, you can correct me if I'm wrong. This is Ms. Johnson. I don't think that you said only GB. I thought you just said it covers GB. So without the word only, it doesn't just mean that one policy. It just includes GB.
Okay. And so it also includes the GBA, JFHA as well.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It's reflected in the minutes.
It would
Right,
cover
without-
any iteration of compliance officer or alternate compliance officer anywhere where we had it listed within policy or procedures.
Thank you for the discussion. I'm good.
All right. Moving next up is the report of the superintendent. And Dr. Sterling, if you don't mind, I may jump the gun ahead of you, but this is the first meeting that we have had with our two new assistant superintendents joining us, Dr. Carter and Dr. Holloran. So I would like to, on behalf of the board, welcome them and thank them for joining us tonight. And I will now turn it over to you to proceed with the report of the superintendent.
Thank you so much. If I can have Dr. Holloran come on camera, Edmonds, Thornton, all of you for this moment. Thank you. Who else do I have? All right. This is the first time for many. I know it's almost like a full house. So we are very, very pleased to have everyone. So as you see, I would like to introduce to the board. We have Dr. Holloran, our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resource and Federal Programs, who has hit the ground running. We are so pleased to have her. Welcome, and I'm pleased to introduce you to our school board.
Good evening. Thank you.
Good
Dr.
evening.
Sterling.
Good evening.
Next, we have our Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Carlton Carter, who has also hit the ground running, doing work with ELS, leadership development, working with our soft opening. And by that smile, I'm going to take it that you're happy to be here with us.
I am. Thank you. And I'm proud to be part of the Franklin family.
All right.
We're very grateful to have both of you join us as well, and welcome.
Yes.
We have Mrs. Thornton. Miss Chairman Phillips, would you like to make that introduction?
Yeah, yes, Ms. Thornton. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, and congratulations on now being the principal of SP Morton Elementary School.
Let's give our hand, people.
Yes, congratulations.
Congratulations, Mrs. Thornton.
Congratulations.
Not to
Thank you
steal
so
your
very
moment,
much.
not to steal
Thank
your
you.
moment and not to steal your thunder, but of course with that, that's a bittersweet congratulations. We also will be saying goodbye to Mr. Warren, who has truly been an asset to the division, and we are so humbled by you being a part of our team, and very grateful for all you have done, not just for SP Morton Elementary School, but for Franklin City Public Schools. So thank you for all your dedication, your years of dedication, your years of hard work, for the mentorship that you have given to so many young people within our division.
Yeah.
We're gonna miss you, but you know, our doors are always open.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You have anything you'd like to say?
Thank you.
Oh,
Do either of you have anything to say? Because this is a big moment for you too, Ms. Warren.
I would say just thank you to the community and everyone. And again, my door is always open. Ms. Thornton's coming in. She's doing a great job. She has always did a great job working on the team. And I wish you all well. Thank you for everything.
Oh,
We wish you well too, Mr. Warren. Thank you so much.
Yes, we do.
Well, first and foremost, good evening and thank you so very much. I have big shoes to fill because Mr. Warren has done a remarkable job leading SP Morton and working with Franklin City Public Schools. But I thank each of you for this opportunity, and I look forward to moving forward, continuing to do great things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. We are always excited. Okay, next we have Miss Edmonds. Good evening, Miss Edmonds. Good to see you this evening. Just to make certain our community know, this is our Director of Special Education. Welcome.
Good evening to everyone. Congratulations, Mrs. Thornton, and congratulations, Mr. Warren.
Yes, congratulations are in order. Next, many of you have heard about her, but this is one of our frontline workers who keeps the food service moving throughout our community. This individual comes in, works with the cafeteria staff, loads the bus, makes sure we have the bus drivers, and she's keeping our community fed. This is our supervisor, Miss Vargas, Nalissa Vargas, and many of you have not seen her, but she will be presenting transportation this evening. But we wanted to introduce you to our school board and to our community. And thank you for everything that you've done, because even when we're not in school, your team is in school, still serving our Franklin community. And we really appreciate you and the team.
All right. So Dr. Hall,
she tried to say something, but she was muted. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you. What were you saying?
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to say thank you, and thank you for this opportunity, and it is an honor to be working with all of you and meeting you all, and congratulations to you.
Okay, thank you. All right. I think that's all I have of our team today. We have a couple of more people that will be on our next meeting, but we're going to go ahead on and get started. Is that okay, Madam Chairman?
Absolutely, Dr. Sterling.
All right, we have a big agenda because we worked feverishly over this plan. But first, we have the financial report, and with that, the financial report will focus on the CARES Act. You know, we had to apply for funding with the CARES Act, and at this time, this is her big debut, because you know she has multiple hats. Dr. Holloran will be going over the CARES Act and what we're recommending to apply for 2 grants actually, and she will go over them. At this time, Dr. Holloran, your stage is yours.
Thank you. Good evening again, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Sterling, and Franklin City community. We're now going to take a look at the CARES Act that was initiated recently by the Virginia Department of Education. And if you could please scroll up, Tammy. Thank you so much. The Corona Act is primarily the overarching purpose is for funding to be provided and provide emergency relief to school divisions that's been impacted by COVID. There are 2 grants that we're primarily applying for. On the left-hand side, you'll see that a formula was used to allocate $617,638.93 to Franklin City Public Schools. So that's guaranteed funding that we are looking to utilize those awarded funds to support the following. The first item, priority 1, a virtual coordinator for online teaching and learning, which will be provide a 2-year funding source to support professional learning, our teachers, administrators, and family and community members. Priority 2, 2 counselors to support mental health within our community and schools. Priority 3, which I definitely am pushing for this, another HR specialist to support with COVID-19 and FMLA for a 2-year term. Priority 4, the purchase of consumable supplies such as cleaners, fogging machines, and masks. Priority 5, jetpack wireless hotspots for teachers and students, which will be a one-time purchase that's desperately needed to ensure that teaching and learning can continue at our schools with our staff members and with our students. And priority 6, Kindles for pre-kindergarten and kindergarten students. So this first set of funding, again, is formula-based, is money that's already allocated, is already in our MEGA system, and it's just a matter of us applying for the funding, receiving your approval, and approval from the Virginia Department of Education. And of course, these items are aligned with the allowable use of funding. The second set of funding that we're applying for is funding that is pretty much left over from the first set of items in the first column, but the Virginia Department of Education did not utilize all of their funding. So they're now having a competition. It's going to be competitive to receive some of those additional funds. So again, we're going to apply to support our community students and families with the following items. Utilizing some of the awarded funding for bathrooms to be installed, so to be touchless. So of course we can eliminate contamination and germs being spread throughout the buildings. Priority 2, the cost for drivers and cafeteria staff to continue to deliver meals to students at home. Priority 3, the cost for drivers, vehicles, and community hotspot Wi-Fi units to enable connectivity for students and teachers to do virtual learning. Priority 4, additional student Chromebooks. Priority 5, cost to purchase and install touchless sinks and toilets for the exceptional education preschool and self-contained classrooms at SP Morton Elementary School. And you'll see that the funding amount allocated here is highlighted in red because this grant is competitive and certain portions of it is formulated. So we are automatically awarded the $3,773.33 to support this priority 5. And then the last priority, priority 6, is to support Zoom meetings and webinars, which will help us to have access for all students and teachers to ensure that effective teaching and learning and professional development is continuing during this, this time when we're affected with COVID. Dr. Sterling, would you like to share some additional information to support our request?
You've done exceptionally well. Are there any, now we turn it over to the board chair to ask for any questions.
It's obvious.
I have a question about.
Excuse me. Go ahead, Amy. I'm sorry.
No, it wasn't Amy. It was me.
Dr. Shelton.
Questions or comments?
Thank you for giving us this detailed outbreak or breakdown, but I was wondering about priority 2. What is the reason that counselors are only 1 year and the other priority 1 and priority 3 are 2 years?
Right, we're looking to expand that, but for the grant and the formula and the money that we have, we only did it for a 1-year term, especially to support the mental health services while our kids are not in school. But Dr. Shelton, this will be revisited because I think we can put that in our operations but not this year, but we will plan to put them in for an extended year for next year. So we are looking at
Okay,
for
thank
a
you.
2-year term. Yes, ma'am.
It's
Mr. Holt, I
obvious
believe
a
you
lot
had
of good work and research went into this, so you all did a wonderful job
Mm.
on that.
Mhm.
Try to be as transparent as possible. And as you all know, with the competitive grant, it specifically said in that grant to upgrade bathroom facilities. And you know that was something that the board looked at 2 years ago. So our mindset was, yes, we can get sanitizer, we can get a bunch of other stuff, but we want something that will be with us long past COVID. So we're looking at another 10, 15 years of something that we can have in our facility to support touchless and less contamination. Okay. Any other
questions or comments in regards to 5.1?
Just wanted to make, I just had a question. This is Andrea. In reference to recommended actions, is this just for our knowledge, or did Dr. Sterling, did you need the board to take action on this evening?
Yes, ma'am. We need the board to take action on it this evening.
Thank you.
All right, so do we have a motion in regards to 5.1, CARES Act federal programs?
Make a motion, we approve CARES Act as presented.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and nays have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, aye.
Andrea Leonard, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries as well.
Right.
Next up would be 5.2, proposed academic calendar change. Dr. Sterling, would you like to lead us through that?
Yes, thank you so much. So the focus is options for FCPS. We talked about our reopening and soft openings. From that time, I had meetings with our teachers, our community members. The last webinar I conducted had over 89 participants, which was a very high number for individuals that wanted to come and hear about the reopening plan and also do a live vote right there in the webinar on our reopening. So with that said, board members, we have 2 additional proposals for you to, or actually 3 total, for you to review. So option 1 on our reopening, and we will need you to vote on these changes this evening. That is the recommendation. Option 1 is a hybrid model with the soft opening and calendar date changes. If you look at the proposed changes side, it talks about August 17th. All teachers report to start professional development. In the original calendar, this was the week that only new teachers came to orientation. Next, you have October 1st is a change to the calendar. It was a teacher work day, professional development day. In the original calendar, it was a regular school day. For the proposed change calendar, October 5th would be the first day of the hybrid instructional model. This is where the first day where our students would actually come back to the classroom. October 5th on the current calendar, it was just an early release professional development day. And on the proposed change calendar, November 23rd is a holiday. All offices will be closed. That will give us that entire week. On the current calendar, October 23rd was an early release for all. Overview of the instructional models with the hybrid, beginning September 1st, pre-K through 3rd, SPED, L students will attend 4 days a week. 4th through 12th grade will be virtual. So that was the original model that we presented to the board. We'd like to present 2 additional models. Ms. Moore, can you move up, please? Thank you. Option 2 was a recommendation from that virtual meeting that we had, and we did a poll of the 89 participants. Option 2, virtual through the first 9 weeks, 100% virtual start for all students, beginning September 1st, ending November 4th, and ending with the first 9 weeks, which is November 4th. Starting November 5th, students will come back into the building. Pre-K through 3rd, SPED L students will attend 4 days a week, depending on their parents' preference. 4th through 12th grade will be virtual or hybrid, starting with an A-B schedule. So instead of the first option started October 5th, this option starts at the end of the first 9 weeks, which is November 5th. Or option 3, virtual through the first semester. So 100% virtual start for all students beginning September 1st and ending January 28th. And board members, I still want to provide clarification that month of September will still be a soft opening with training for our parents. We won't just throw them into those virtual classes. However, the 100% virtual will go through January 28th, and the first day students will come back into the building is February 1st. Again, with a parent preference, pre-K through 3rd, SPED L students will attend 4 days a week. 4th through 12th grade students, when they come back on February 1st, they will come back in a hybrid A-B model. Phase 1 learning options may be offered for special education programs, English learners, and preschool through 3rd grade students. That has not changed from phase 2 and phase 3, 1, 2, and 3. So that is the recommendation for the board to consider 3 options and provide us with a recommendation on what they would like for us to, how you.
Sterling, what is your recommendation and the administration's recommendation? Option 1, 2, or 3?
Okay. Option 2 had the most votes from our teachers and our community, which would be a 100% virtual start for all students beginning September 1st and ending the 4th, and starting school on the 5th. This is my support of the teachers and community as well. I think we are well equipped to be able to start our students virtually with a soft start, also with the training modules. So Mr. Holt, mine would be option 2.
I agree, Superintendent, and make a motion that we open with option 2 for 2020 to 21.
I second the motion.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I have one question, Dr. Sterling. The calendar dates that you referenced under option 1, are those only for option 1, or are you looking to change those for either of the options?
They're going to be for either of the options because it helps our calendar flow better. So you're exactly right. They can stay the same.
So we would look at the proposed date changes for August 17th, October 1, October 5th, and November 23rd to be included in with the option 2. Is that correct?
That is correct. But I also have another caveat. If I can, I know there's a motion. However, I would like the board to accept the recommendation with the caveat that we revisit opening the schools after the 9 weeks, depending on where we are with the COVID in our community, because we may have to extend it. So I think the teachers would appreciate that, the community would appreciate that we are revisiting it before we allow our students to go back.
So would anyone like to make a motion to amend the motion on the floor to include the calendar date changes for August 17th, October 1, October 5, November 23rd, and with the understanding that the model will be revisited as necessary to determine if that return to hybrid education for November 5th needs to be adjusted.
I will make a motion that we start with option 2 with the caveat that we revisit it if need be.
All right, that is, we have a motion. Anything in that, Mr. Holt, about those dates of August 17th, October 1, October 5, and November 23rd?
Yes, I have a question.
I like that as presented, but I will hear the board.
Okay. Ms. Johnson?
Yes, October 5th doesn't fit into that option 2. Because we would start hybrid if we're virtual. Is that correct?
That is correct.
October 5th, for the first day of the hybrid. And okay, I do see what you're saying. Yes.
So we would strike that if we're making a motion to start with option 2.
Right, we'd be looking at August 17th, changing the proposed change for the 17th, the 1st, and the 5th. I meant the 23rd, excuse me. The August 17th, October 1, and November 23rd.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes. So Madam Chair, we have a motion, I believe, on the floor, and Mr. Holt made a motion for.
Correct.
So why don't we go ahead? My suggestion would be go ahead and take care of the first motion, then come back and have a second motion in reference to these changes.
I agree. I think that's a great suggestion because we have a motion and a second to accept option number 2.
Yes.
So if there's no other questions or comments, we will proceed to the vote. So all those in favor of moving by ward signify by saying aye for option 2. Otherwise, nays have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, aye.
Andrea Leonard, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, nay.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. All right, so do we have another motion in regards to any of the dates associated with the changes?
A question before the motion, if that's okay.
Okay.
As a point of clarity from Dr. Sterling. So your recommendation of the proposed changes would be, I want to make sure that I'm clear, that August 17th, all teachers would report for staff development. Mm-hmm. October 1 would be a teacher workday professional.
Yes.
And November 23rd would be a holiday, all schools and offices closed.
Yes.
Okay.
And October 5th would be still in the virtual learning 9 weeks. So they wouldn't be a hybrid. It would be a virtual day.
Okay, so October 5th, you want to leave that as a proposed change, but October 5th would be what now?
It says first day of hybrid instructional. That means the students will come back, but it would not. They would still be at home.
So do we need to strike? Are we striking? I believe Ms. Johnson said to strike.
Right, because it wouldn't be October 5th. It would be November 5th that they would start the first day of the hybrid model.
Okay, so are we striking it or changing that date to November 5th?
I'm requesting that we change it to November 5th.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I had all the dates. Okay, so these proposed dates, then the motion is to accept the proposed dates, not to accept hybrid with soft opening. Because the board just voted to accept option 2.
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
So then the motion would be, your recommended action would be to accept the proposed changes of dates. Am I correct, Ms. Phillips?
Correct.
Okay. This is Andrea Hall Leonard, Ward 3. I move to accept the superintendent's recommendation for the proposed dates of August 17th, October 1, November 5th, and November 23rd.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and nays have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, aye.
Ward 3, Andrea Leonard, aye.
Ward 4, Marshall Williams, aye.
Ward 5, Andrea Shelton, aye.
At large, Carrie Johnson, aye.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries.
I have a question for Dr. Sterling about August 17th. Would that be the teacher's report to their own school, or would it be like a convocation in the auditorium?
I wish we could have those days, Mr. Hope, but we won't have it. It will be a virtual professional development. They will be learning the online platform, which is called Canvas.
Okay, so they won't physically come to Franklin, correct?
Not at this time.
Okay.
And one other thing that I just want to add, I think we, and when I say we, I don't mean the board, I mean everyone within the division, we all agree and understand that educating students is what we are all here for, and that's why every one of us are here doing what we do. But we also have to make sure there's a level of comfort for and safety for our staff, as well as our families and our students. And we are committed to our staff. And we ask also that as we transition into this year, which is going to be unlike any other school year that we've started off, that our staff also remains committed to our students and puts our students' needs with virtual learning first. I know our staff will, because our staff are dedicated to our students, but these young men and women within our division are going to have some challenges through this. We all know that. We're not blind to that. And I just want to make sure that we are all absolutely committed to making sure that these students succeed, because that's what we are here for. We want to see them progress. And you know, all of us are willing to do whatever we need to make sure that our students do continue to progress forward. Okay. Anything else in regards to the proposed reopening?
I just say, I know it took a lot of work on a lot of people's part, and Dr. Sterling, thank you for your staff for the good work they did on this. Not an easy task.
Not at all, but we're just beginning. You should, after we go to the next one, you'll see how our staff are surveying by phone each and every member of our Franklin City Public Schools community to determine how we are going to, how they would like to send their child back to school. So at this time, we're going to do updates on parent registration, soft enrollment, transportation, and community service provider day camp. So first, and with his debut, we will have Dr. Carter. He will present the parent registration and soft enrollment opening. Dr. Carter?
All right, thank you, Dr. Sterling. So we have been working with the counselors in every building to formulate a team to plan to reach out to every parent to give them an option of what they would like to do as far as registering for school. So basically, the option breaks down into two, or actually three scenarios. First option is a hybrid A-B week with a choice of morning or afternoon attendance. The second option is 100% virtual. And then with the caveat of special education, there's a final decision determined by the IEP team. And so you'll see an example, and there are roughly 19 questions. And through the 19 questions, we will be able to tally exactly who is comfortable with coming to school on a hybrid schedule, who prefers to stay home on the 100% virtual. So that's what we're working on at this point. And with the board's approval, I think that's how it works. With the board's approval, or Dr.
I usually ask for that, but you go ahead. It's okay. It's your debut. Go ahead.
Yes, that will, you know, if there's any questions, I'm sure everyone can see that I don't have to read all 19 questions, but I'll just pause right here for any questions.
Okay. All right. We are looking at like question 6. We're updating all of our numbers. If you can go ahead on and scroll up, Ms. Moore. And this is the option model, which grade your child will be entering. And this is very important. We even prompt our counselors. Counselors, before asking parents to choose an option, please explain each option in detail, confirm that the parents understand all options clearly, and that you answer their questions. And we want to make certain we're as detailed as possible. And that's why we added this part down here, number 9. And you could just slowly scroll through to 17, because we want our board and our community to know. We took a lot of time. We didn't want to just ask 1 or 2 questions. We really wanted to make certain that we're supporting you and your child in every way possible for a smooth transition back to Franklin City Public Schools, or starting the year off virtually smoothly. Okay. And we do have some updates on this. This was rolled out this week. And I'm going to, if we can get to the end of that, Ms. Moore. Thank you so much. Right here, we have the exceptional education soft enrollment, because as you know, these are our learners that have the opportunity to come back into the building. I'm going to turn this over to the director, Ms. Edmond, and there's a lot of there's some information she's going to share with you, so you will know how we're making decisions and where our parents are standing at this time. So Ms. Edmonds, if you would like to proceed, this is not your debut, but we always love to see you on the stage. So you can go do your presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Sterling. Good evening to everyone again. Yes, the Exceptional Education Department did begin making our surveys on Thursday, July 30th. We attempted to contact every parent of every child that receives exceptional education services, following the same survey as Mr. Carter just shared with you. As of August the 6th, out of our 121 students that we have, 81 parents have been contacted. And these students, these are parents of students that are in the inclusion setting, in self-contained setting, as well as our students that attend CSEP. Many of our students, the reason why there's 81 that have been contacted, many parents, numbers have been changed, or numbers have been disconnected, or we left voicemails. For those that we left voicemails, we did a minimum of 3 attempts to recall each one of the parents that we could not contact. So we were successful with 81 of our parents being contacted to complete the survey.
Nice.
The survey data is as follows on the 3 main questions. Which option would you prefer for when Franklin City Public Schools reopens in the fall? And this section is just for our inclusion students, and there were 66 responses. Out of the 66 responses, 51.1% of the parents surveyed preferred all virtual online instruction. In grades 7 and 8, 12.1% of the parents preferred the hybrid model. 12.1% of parents of students in the 9th through 12th grade also preferred the hybrid model. And our K-3, 7.6% of the parents preferred the hybrid model. In grade 6, there were 6.1% that preferred the hybrid model. 4th and 5th grade, there were 4.5% of the parents that provided or preferred the hybrid model. And I had 1.5% of our parents that were undecided at this time. They still need some continuous thoughts on which would be best for their child. They did have concerns about the distancing and various things that are concerns of everyone who is looking at the way our schools will reopen. The next question was, which option would you prefer for when Franklin City Public Schools reopens in the fall? And this was for our self-contained students. And we obtained 29 responses from parents of students that received their services in the self-contained program. 65.5% of those parents preferred an all virtual platform online, and 34.5% preferred the in-person model of instruction. We also wanted to look at the transportation, because transportation is very important. As you know, we do have some students that require special transportation and those that ride the regular school bus to and from school. So the question is, for the 2021 school year, how would you prefer your child to get to school? 53.1% of our parents stated that they would transport their students to and from school. 45.7% of our parents preferred that Franklin City Public Schools provide the transport, and 1.2% preferred or chose the option to walk or ride their bicycle to school. And these are the results of the survey that we just completed. Do you have any questions?
Interesting.
Any questions for Ms. Edmonds? All right, Dr. Sterling.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Edmonds.
Thank you so much. Excellent report. And we will be continuing that soft enrollment, and the board will receive the numbers for elementary, middle, and high school when we finish those soft enrollment surveys. Next, we have
Mrs. Phillip,
Yes, ma'am.
I had a question.
Dr. Shelton, if you would.
Dr. Edmonds, with the self-contained students in those 29 responses, what percentage does that represent of the self-contained students?
For which learning, Dr. Shelton?
Which option would you prefer for the reopening of the school?
For the self-contained? For self-contained,
Right.
It was 65.5% preferred all virtual learning, and 34.5% preferred in-person learning.
But I mean, in your overall student population of your self-contained students, did those 29 responses represent a majority of your self-contained students?
They were the majority of the self-contained students. As I stated earlier, some of our parents were unable to be reached for various reasons, but I can say that these 29 responses were about halfway to the majority of our self-contained kids. We had more of responses from the elementary self-contained than we did from the high school self-contained parents. But it was close to being the majority. I won't say exact majority, but it is close to being the majority, Dr. Shelton.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Ms. Johnson. I had a question. You said you had 81 responses. Is that correct?
We have total?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Are some of those doubly counted because the 66 or whatever plus the 29, that's more than that. So I was wondering how that didn't add up to me.
They're not doubly counted because the way the survey does, the survey calculates it itself as the questions are answered. So it creates the percentages as we put the information per child into the survey.
And I
Okay.
want to thank you for saying that, Ms. Edmond. You said per child. It
Yes.
says here 81 parents were contacted. It doesn't mean that 81 parents didn't have 2 or 3 children that may have special needs. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank
Okay,
you,
so-
Dr. Carl Leonard. That is exactly right. We did have several parents that had 3 children, 2 children, 4 children that received services. So it may be
So-
81 parents, but you have multiple children. Thank you.
Okay, so the 81 isn't the, okay, so you don't count the parents doubly per the child. Okay, I got you now.
Yes, yes.
Okay, excellent information, excellent conversation.
Any other questions for Ms. Edmonds? Thank you very much, Ms. Edmonds.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much. Next, we're going to have Ms. Vargas. Ms. Vargas, are you with us? Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
What was that? I missed that. You, Dr. Sterling. What was that?
I was asking Ms. Vargas because I can't hear her and she's reporting next.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me now?
There
Yes.
she is.
Okay.
There
I'm
you-
also dialing in from my phone.
All right, Ms. Vargas will give us the transportation plan. Ms. Vargas worked collaboratively with Mr. Ryder on the plan. He is not with us this evening. The length of the plan will let you know that Mr. Ryder had his hands in the plan, but we will be looking through it for all of the important details. Right, Ms. Vargas?
Yes, ma'am.
All right,
As I
go
go
ahead
through
on.
it, you'll probably be able to hear him.
Okay, you will probably be able to hear him. You're right.
Okay, so things have changed, right? Drastically with everything. And in the past, school buildings were designed to have the most students in a classroom for the teachers effective. And things have changed because of the pandemic. School buses were also designed to have the most students rolling down the road, given the width and height restrictions, right? This is exactly what we do not want to do during a pandemic. Effective January 2020, as of January 2020, back in January 2020, sorry, we had 10 CDL drivers. As of May, we have actually lost 3 drivers who have retired. Congratulations to them. And for the past 50 years, we picked up all students riding the bus in the morning, dropped them off at schools, then gathered them up in late afternoon and drove them to their stops. We can't do that anymore. Schedules, things have changed, so we must change. Transportation must change. And we haven't been able to really fully do all of the transportation routes because the schedules for the upcoming year hasn't been set in stone yet. Ms. Moore, if you want to move down. So pre-pandemic, we were able to fit 64 children comfortably on a bus. Post-pandemic, on a bus that would normally hold 64 students, we can only fit 20 comfortably if we abide by the 6-foot rule or the 10-foot rule. And then we're also down 3 drivers. We have buses, we just need the drivers who can transport our children. So according to the 3 principals and the reopening plans that they have come up with, the best plans for the proper opening for our students to have our students back in school through the hybrid program would be morning classes and afternoon classes, which means we're going to have morning routes and afternoon routes. With the hybrid schedule that they have come up with, we're going to have an A-B schedule, morning for A students, and then a B schedule, afternoon for students on the B list. We still don't know who those students are going to be, so that will be planned out a little bit later on. But we have a general idea of how we need to transport these kids. Now it's just honing it down into how we're going to do this, and hopefully hiring some more drivers. If we can move on to the next slide. One of the ideas that we have learned other school districts are looking into is a fantastic walking school bus. Now, in the state of Virginia, we are not required to transport students that live within a mile to a mile and a half, depending on the students and their needs. So it helps us out a lot because we're a small community. Franklin is very small. I think it's 8-mile radius around. And a lot of our students are really close to their schools, especially at ST Morton. A lot of our students live really close, like walking distance. They can see the schools from where they live. So the idea of a walking school bus route is where 2 adults meet the kids at pre-assigned stops. They gather up the kids and they all walk to school together. So this is very common practice in warmer climates like California, and from numerous meetings, like I stated, with other Virginia divisions, the concept is being pursued by many. If we can move on to the next slide, Ms. Moore. We were lucky to find this software that is helped Mr. Ryder and I out tremendously because we're not really familiar with Franklin City. So this has helped us put all of our students on a map and we can just look at them visually. So this is our new routing software. And if you look at the map on the right, you see all these blue dots. These blue dots represent our students. And if you see the lines down at the bottom to the right, that is the 3/4 of a mile distance around the elementary school ST Morton. So when you're using the software, you have to keep constantly zooming in and out. So as you zoom out, it lumps the students together and it gives us a total of how many students are in that general area. But if you zoom in, it starts to show you exactly where the students are. So the number of kids inside ST Morton walking zone is about 185 students. That's 9.5 bus loads if we're doing it at 20 students per bus.
Wow.
Yes. So we scroll down to the next slide, please. So again, as I stated, if we zoom in just for ST Morton, you see the number of students starts to scatter about. So this is where all of our students are located. And this is actually within the walking zone. So it just shows you that there's too many kids to walk if they all walk at the same time, but they won't all be walking at the same time because some students will be coming in the morning shift and other students will be coming in the afternoon shift. And also with the AB schedule, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. However, each school has their own schedule. We can move on to the, and again, we won't know until we narrow it down with the surveys going out and the parents ultimately deciding, yes, I will send my child to school. Yes, they will need transportation or not. So if you look here, we just gave a little hand sketched route. So for instance, the red line is walking route number 1, and I think it was removed accidentally. And then the green line is walking route number 2. So we're going to need parent volunteers, perhaps student TAs, somebody. We're working out the things to volunteer to do these walking routes with our students. So the green line indicates where the crossing guard or the volunteer bus walker will start and just start gathering the kids. Like the kids are going to walk from their homes to a designated area where they're going to meet up with the adults. And then they're just going to walk around and they're all going to walk together to the schools under supervision. If we can move to the next slide. And here you see we've scouted out a number of routes. Mr. Ryder and I, we drove around the neighborhood and walked around the neighborhood to ensure that there were sidewalks and it was safe enough for students and our staff or volunteers to walk our children to school. So if we can move on to the next. Okay, so this is the fun part. So did you know walking is one of the simplest, most effective most affordable strategies for kids and adults to build physical activity into their lives. 1 mile of walking translates to 2/3 of the recommended 60 minutes of physical activity each day. And now with the pandemic, we can't have any kind of organized sports or playtime, recess time. So this kind of makes up for where they're losing out with recess or sports or break or gym time. So the benefits of walking extend beyond health. Studies show that there are links between physical activity and academic achievement, proving that active kids do better. We can move on to the next. We've had a lot of questions from some people regarding weather, and we thought that perhaps we can get some Franklin City Public Schools umbrellas with our logo on it, that they're clear so the kids can see right through them, so there's no danger of them their view being blocked, and also possibly some rainbows with our, just like the mask that we have now that has, I think, Broncos on it, which I think is pretty cool. So, the kids will like that too. It's still a little fun. I think it's cute. We can continue on. Okay, so we're just going to touch on J.P. King. This is the middle school. So this is the number of students that they have within their walking distance, which is 3/4 of a mile from the school. So the pink dot is the school, and the blue dot, the larger blue dots are our students. If you want to move on to the next slide. Okay, so as I stated earlier, Mr. Ryder and I did walk around and drive around with actually Terry Zerfu, because she knows Franklin really well. And we were able to scout out some routes in which the kids would be walking together or with the older kids on their own. And all main streets have sidewalks on at least one side of the street. There are some areas that we need to look into, and hazards require crossing guards, active railroad crossings. And I believe that there's only 2 points where there's an active railroad. There's another railroad that to our understanding, the train is not active. So it is safe for our students to cross. We can move on to the next. Franklin High School posed a different kind of issue because there's a lot more open land. For us, it might be simpler since the students live in the area and they're probably like, oh no, that's fine. We walk that all the time. We're not sure, but we're looking, safety first as we were driving around and walking around. So for the high school students, we did a 1 mile radius. The problem with the Franklin High School radius is that the 2 main roads leading to the high school, which is Hunterdale and Fairview, they don't have sidewalks. And Hunterdale road cars travel fast, which they do. So we cut the radius to 3/4 of a mile instead of a mile. Initially, we were looking at 1.5 miles, but we went from that down to 3/4 of a mile. We'll move on to the next. So this is just showing you, so we have the railroad crossing, and this is one of the routes that we were trying to do, which we just still need to look into this a little bit more. But Ms. Tammy, if we can move on. And then also with Franklin High School, the bus route. So these are the students outside of the walking radius who, if they need transportation, we would have to transport. So that is 241 kids. So if only half go per day, we have 120 students, and that leads us to, we can only put 20 students per bus, so that's a 6 bus load. So one of the issues that we're running into is having to pick up students, drop them off in the bus, having to go around multiple times in the mornings and then in the afternoons to drop them off, as opposed to before they would go around once or twice to pick up our students and bring them back. So Ms. Tammy, can you move on? And it's similar with J.P. King as well as S.P. Morton. So just to give you an idea, the kids outside of the walk zone is 137. And if you go, if only half go per day, we're running into the same issue. So you have the general idea with this. And then, I'm sorry, go ahead, continue. And with S.P. Morton, so if you look inside the circle, we have, and outside the circle, outside the blue walking zone, we have 211 students. And for S.P. Morton, our bus routes for pre-K to 3rd grade inside the walk zone, we have 97 students. That's not including our SPED students. Our SPED students are a different, we will be transporting SPED students. So if we can continue on to the next slide. Also keep in mind that we only have 7 active drivers, and we are hoping to hire some soon. And no routes can be created at this time because we don't know exactly which kids are going on which AM or PM route. Mr. South has that laid out. He split his students. These will be in the morning, these will be in the afternoon. But again, it all is contingent upon the parents and which parents do want to send their children to school and who do not. We can move on to the next. I believe this is it. Yes. Any questions?
Yes, this is Carrie Johnson, and I have a couple of things. First of all, I want to say that I grew up in Norfolk, and if you lived within a mile of the school, it didn't matter what grade you were in, you walked. That was just, I mean, they didn't have transportation for you, you walked. So I have absolutely no problem with the kids walking to school. One of the concerns I have is when you're talking about the kids at the elementary school or what have you, like all coming together when we're trying to make sure that they're staying apart from each other. That's just kind of something that's setting off a flag in my head with so many of them. And I know that they're splitting up, with the days and the mornings and the afternoons. I just don't know how feasible that's going to be. The other thing is on the Franklin High School slide, there's a black line route, and it said something to the effect of, yeah, there it is right there. That's the only point where there aren't any sidewalks, but the distance that the kids would be walking is very short. And if you look at the blue right there, it only really seems to affect 6 kids. Right. Okay. Well, one of those kids is mine, so I know this for certain.
I don't know that, Carrie.
I'm sorry, but I know this for certain that road right there, Fairview, when the cars turn onto Fairview, that's a pretty quick turn, and then that little, it's dark in the morning, and before the sun comes up. So even though it's a short walk, the cars can't see anything. So I don't think that it's safe for the kids, even though it's only a short walk. So unless those are afternoon students, I don't think that's a safe path to consider. So that would be something that you would have, that you all might want to, I know you took a ride with Ms. Zerflu, but take a ride during the times when the kids are actually going to be going to school and coming from school.
Absolutely.
Because you'll not only see the conditions as far as the light is concerned, but also the animals, because deer frequent the neighborhood, and also that field over there on the corner of Crescent and Fairview. So I'm just saying.
Okay. Those are valid points. And we're hoping to be in touch soon and involve the police department that will help us, and possibly the city. Maybe we can put a light there. There are many variables that we're looking into, many of which we did not touch on here, but those are questions that we did discuss. For instance, the students and keeping their distance. For the younger students, we were thinking of utilizing a rope, if you will, that had knots in it.
That's wonderful. That's
right.
Cute.
So the students will hold on to that. Yellow vest, bright yellow vest, so that way they are very visible to the traffic and to the vehicles around them, and of course also involving the police department to help us. And I believe Mr. Ryder has been in discussion with the city. There is a strip that is actually across from the police department near SP Morton. There's the sidewalk all the way down Pretlow, and then the sidewalk just dies, and it's just flat. So we need to put something there, have a sidewalk built, or have the police escort in the mornings until a permanent fix can be done. But those are all of the things we have gone back and forth and trying to figure out. Yeah.
Can I say something to the board members? Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. And I know this is us adapting to our new normal, but what we want today is to really get your thoughts, your feedback, so we can take it back to the team, retweak it, still develop the transportation and how we're going to do things, and then bring it back to the board, because this is an extensive, and they did a wonderful job, presentation, but we need your feedback to make it better. So what you just said, Ms. Johnson, we're going to take that back to the team. And you're right, we need to get out there 6:30. Let's see what needs to be done. If there's any other feedback, the more we have, the better our plan will be when we bring it back to the board.
Dr. Sterling, this is Andrea Leonard, Ward 3. I guess my question would be, listening to Ms. Edmonds in her presentation, I believe the parents were surveyed. So is it possible, or maybe you've already done this, in your survey, did we survey parents as well as the community to get feedback?
Yes,
in reference to transportation?
Yes, we did. And that is one
Okay.
of that is a question on the soft openings. And
Okay.
when we give you all of the data, it was very surprising. Most of the parents did not want their children to walk, but a great deal of parents said that they will transport their own child to school. So that's another variable that we can look at to see how many kids parents are willing to transport, because you already know many years you've had all your babies there. Ms. Phillips cared. You know what SP Morton's line looks like in the morning for drop off.
Yes.
So you have a number of parents that will do that. A very small number said that they would let their children walk, but that's without seeing the plan or anything. So again, we're still tweaking it. And board members, you have the opportunity to say, okay, Sterling, you've given us a mile. This is all new for us. Maybe we can make the radius a little smaller. And then we can bring you back a plan that's where the radius may be a little smaller, and see what we can do with that. But we just want your guidance and support, because we know with the national shortage of bus drivers, it will be impossible to get all of our children to school. And COVID and post-COVID, it's going to be rather difficult.
I think it's an excellent plan. I'm a junkie for this kind of software, and I just like that, so I like it.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments for Dr. Sterling or for Ms. Vargas?
Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you very much, Ms. Vargas. And great job.
Great job. Okay, this is just the first step. We'll be bringing it back to you at least another 2 times. This is the preliminary. We'll bring it back at least 2 times before we ask for an approval for the school year. All right, next, Community Service Providers Day Camp. This is one of my superstar principals who led this initiative. I was so proud to go into the meetings and have him just take the lead with our community members. He had a vision, he laid it out, and all of the providers were so happy to be able to have the opportunity to work extensively with Franklin City Public Schools. So at this time, I'm going to release this. Is it going to be Ms. Thornton, or we're going to have Mr. Warren do this presentation? Which one?
I'm kind of doing it both together if we may.
All right, Principal Thornton and Principal Warren, I'm turning it over to you.
Yes, ma'am. So get started. Just want to say thank you to all the community leaders. I'm not going to name them right now, but going through, you're going to see a lot of people work together. We first started off with a small group, SP More, and then we opened it up, and it's got bigger and bigger and bigger. I like all of our strings look like the Brady Bunch almost, where everybody strings. I just want to thank everybody that was included for the community leaders. Also, we have DSS involved. We have so many people, and thank you all, the ones that's looking and listening right now that's joining us today. We did have a meeting today too as well. And also, I'll be presenting this with our new principal, Ms. Thornton. So get started. Ms. Thornton would take the first slide.
All right, thank you, Mr. Warren. Good evening again to everyone. We, in an effort to support our families during the pandemic and with our possible, well, now that we know, starting in the second semester, we met with, as Mr. Warren said, different community providers, service providers, and at this time, we'll share some of that information from those collaborations. First, we have the Boys and Girls Club and Franklin City Parks and Rec, and they are collaborating, working together in a partnership with the Boys and Girls Club in collaboration with Franklin City Parks and Recs. It is limited to 50 people, 40 being students, 10 being staff members. They gave us an estimated fee of $50 weekly. Again, it will be available during the school day. The hours would be from 7 o'clock a.m. to 6 o'clock p.m. The Boys and Girls Club has the additional Chromebooks, actually 15, and it is being considered to utilize Joseph P. King Middle School as an additional site. The Boys and Girls Club and Franklin City Parks and Recs will follow CDC guidelines for safety, looking for the safety of our students, all staff members, and parents and guardians will be required to sign a joint waiver from the City of Franklin Parks and Recs and the Boys and Girls Club. There will be computer rooms available. Of course, that's going to be very necessary with our initial soft enrollment, with our virtual learning, in addition to Wi-Fi that will be available.
All right, next slide. We reached out to Unique Little Hands too. As you may know or may not know, Unique Little Hands have two establishments, one in Suffolk and also one in Franklin. And also something that we learned new today, just because we're talking about the different things in Franklin, we learned from DSS that if they're approved for financial assistance, they can also have support in other cities too as well. So that's something very, very important moving forward. But you'll see more of that throughout the slide. So Unique Little Hands, we reached out to them. We had actually the owner and also the site facilitator join us in one of our meetings. We had multiple meetings. We had almost 5 meetings now. So they're limited to 17 students, school age, aging from 4 to 13. Usually they do weekly payments, but now they're trying to break it down for $30 per day because some parents may not need it every day. They may be on an A-B schedule, Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, and Thursday. So now they're breaking out per day, only the days that's needed. The time will be 5:30 a.m. to 6 o'clock p.m. Certain students may be eligible for financial support through DSS, Department of Social Service. DSS is currently funding over 92% of children at the Children's Center right now at the Unique Little Hands. And also they have a retired teacher, and we're working together with them and also the other community service representatives to have some extra support in the buildings or at their facilities.
Next, we have the YMCA. The YMCA is licensed to take in 100 children, and they also are following the CDC guidelines. They work in collaboration with the Department of Social Services to provide financial support. Parents interested can go to the Department of Social Services and fill out a form. And as we proceed in the presentation, the link for that is available. They can apply for the Open Doors program, and it's based on income and situational circumstances. Ages range from the ages of 4 and 12. Masks are required to be worn. They are providing online registration in addition to on-site registration. They're currently working on their daily rates to give the best plan for our families. and their hours are 6 o'clock a.m. to 6 o'clock p.m.
Next slide that you see is the location for grade levels. And thank you again for Dr. Sterling for coming in to a few of our meetings and giving your expertise too as well. So we're looking at kindergarten, 4th and 5th grade to be established at the YMCA. 1st grade to 3rd grade, partnering with Franklin Boys and Girls Club at Samuel P. Morton and also Martin Luther King Center. And 6th grade tentatively, Franklin Boys and Girls Club and also Joseph P. King Middle School. So these are some of the things that we continue to work on. We're meeting every week, once a week, and just getting a lot of input from the community.
Franklin City Public Schools is willing to make contributions to support these programs by providing transportation, meals, providing additional staffing to support the community service providers. They are also willing to, we are also willing to support purchasing supplies if necessary. The facilities currently we have down, of course, Samuel P. Morton Elementary School, Joseph P. King Middle School, the Martin Luther King Jr. Center, the YMCA, and unique, Little Hands, and Unique Little Hands too. Because as Mr. Warren referenced, they have another facility in Suffolk.
Okay, and bear with me because the Department of Social Service, they had an excellent team there, just giving us so much input and information. And I'm going to start with the Department of Social Service. The representative that came in for DSS is Sarah Rexroad. This is her email address and also her phone number for the Department of Social Service. Currently, they do not have a wait list for applications. They have open enrollment for new applicants at this time, but parents have to get on it right away because it is a 30-day process for them to process everything after the application is submitted. DSS will need funding approved from the state in order to increase intake numbers due to being at the maximum number for their child target feed base. The federal government regulations do not approve payments for the time that students are supposed to be in the school at the moment, but they're currently looking into it and they will make accommodations for each child per payment for family needs. More information will be given soon due to COVID-19. The DSS has asked the state for permission to receive all funds in advance for all payments needed for families. So parents can apply for TANF, SNAP, payment assistant, Medicaid, medical assistant, energy assistant, childcare, and any other programs that they have. Also, they reference the EBT cards. That's something that they also do. And they also stated that if they receive the card already, they're working on another payment to them too as well for the reload on the same card. DSS would like to partner with Franklin City Public Schools, especially with SP Morton Elementary School, due to incidents that have been reported in Franklin. CPS cases have been tripled since the beginning of the pandemic. Now, you all can see some of the importance of why we need these programs and just to continue in a positive aspect for all our students, not only SP Morton, but JPK and also the high school. DSS will need information from Franklin City Public Schools on how many students that they need for childcare after the surveys are completed. So you've seen some of the data that was already presented, and our excellent counselors, they're going to do feedback, working with Dr. Jones and Dr. Carter to get feedback to see the right placement for our students. And the easiest way to do the applications is online. Right here is also the website that they can go to, but they also make accommodations for paper-based. I believe that's everything. Oh, also, this is new information that we received today. Again, DSS has been so great and wonderful. I hope someone is listening now. Thank you for everything that you have done. The approved sites that they have for DSS sites is Unique Little Hands 2, the Gingerbread House, Children's Center, the YMCA, and also additional approved home-based daycare sites. You can see the names here and also their phone numbers. They have been approved from DSS. She also said it's made public. You have Joanne Turner, Fannie Haley, Rhonda Holland Hayes, and Mary Bellum. So thank you for all that you will do if you're listening now. And also I want to repeat again, for the people that live in Franklin, if they're approved from DSS, They do not have to stay in Franklin for childcare. They also can go to the neighboring school districts and the neighboring cities around us. Okay. And that's it for myself and Ms. Thornton. Thank you for all that you all do to support us.
Yes, thank you.
Any questions?
Oh, any questions, please?
No question, just a comment. Excellent presentation. You all are doing an excellent job. I love the community collaboration. Excellent.
And also, I want to add, it was very thankful that we reached out to them as the Franklin City Public School team, because as a team, it's everyone. It's the school, it's the parents, the children, the community leaders, and they were just so thankful for being asked to be in those meetings, and we will continue it on. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
You're muted, Amy. Miss Phillips.
Thank you. I keep forgetting that. But thank you very much, Mr. Warren and Ms. Thornton, for that. That's a lot of work that has gone into that, and it's very obvious and apparent by everything that was put together. And thank you so much on behalf of the families. It's not just the students, but the families.
And we're hoping to get this information up on our website as soon as possible. But this is going to be a new program for our division. So we will definitely be seeking approval to move forward with our day camp initiative for our parents.
So are you seeking a motion on this tonight, or is this just like a first reading on this?
We can do a first. We would really need to seek approval at this time. Only because we have 3 weeks before school actually starts and goes virtual, even though it's a soft opening, and our parents need to have somewhere if they need day camp support. So we need to get this moving officially.
So then my question is, Dr. Sterling, this is Andrea Leonard. My question is, this presentation came under the combined recover, redesign, restart. Are you seeking approval for all of it, or just that portion that was just given?
Just the portion that was just given.
Thank
Because
you.
this was not, it was mentioned, but it was not spelled out and detailed in the presentation.
So you're seeking approval on the community service providers day camp portion?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Anybody is so moved, I will entertain a motion.
This is Andrea Hall Leonard. I would say so moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the community service providers day camp proposal. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course nays have the same option.
Ward 1, I'm happy to say aye.
Ward 3, Andrea Leonard, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, absolutely aye. That motion carries.
Thank you, thank you. And again, thank you, Ms. Thornton and Mr. Warren, for your leadership with pulling all of this together. It is going to be really something our community needs, and we really appreciate all of your hard work and our community providers for working with us. Okay, next, a lot of this with the redesign. Though you have a redesign, you have to, it's almost as if it's the shell of the plan. Now we are actually building it, putting everything together, and it's the systems that we are seeking approval for this evening. So at this time, we have the presentation to the school board, and this will be done by Ms. Holler in the first part, but if you can move on to the next slide. Thank you. By the end of this session, board members will review COVID-19 cases in Franklin, Virginia. We will review the lead pursuant to Family First Coronavirus Response Act. We will review guidelines for employees returning to work for the 2021 school year. And those are the bullets. And then we will seek board recommendations as well as approval on the following items. Next. Franklin City COVID cases since the last time we presented have jumped significantly. Total cases 158, hospitalized 7, and we went from deaths previously were 3, now we have 6. At this time, as you all know, board members, this affects our policy, and we are looking for an approval for the extension, of an amendment of our family medical leave policy. And at this time, I'm going to have Dr. Holloran, the Assistant Superintendent from Human Resource, present you with the leave pursuant to Family First Coronavirus Response Act, known as FFCRA. Dr. Holloran?
Dr. Sterling. The FFCRA requires certain employers to provide employees with paid sick leave, the expanded family and medical leave for specified reasons related to COVID-19. These provisions apply from April 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. An employee is entitled to take leave related to COVID-19 if the employee is unable to work, including teleworking, because the employee, with these following specifics, is either subject to a federal, state, or local quarantine or isolation order related to COVID-19, has been advised by a healthcare provider to quarantine related to something that's related to COVID-19, is experiencing COVID-19 symptoms and is seeking medical diagnosis, is caring for an individual subject to an order described in or self-quarantine as described in relation to what's noted above, is caring for his or her child whose school or place of care is closed or child care provider is unable to open in relation to COVID-19, or is experiencing any other substantially similar condition specified by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. There are several mandated provisions that are part of the FFCRA, and then there, as Dr. Sterling noted earlier, proposed expanded provisions that we will be seeking your approval following this presentation. The first mandated provision is that for reasons 1 and 2, as noted in the previous slide, an employee is eligible for 2 weeks of up to 80 hours of paid sick leave at 100% without using their accrued paid leave. Beyond these 2 weeks, employees may have up to an additional 10 weeks of leave only if they qualify under Family Medical Leave Act. The proposed expanded provision is for reasons 1 and 2. An employee is eligible for 2 weeks or up to 80 hours of paid leave at 100%, no limit, without using their accrued paid leave. Beyond this, all employees may take up to an additional 10 weeks of leave under the FMLA, and the accrued leave must be used if employees desire to continue their pay during this period. The next mandated provision is for reasons 3. An employee is eligible for 2 weeks up to 80 hours of paid sick leave, 100% without using their accrued paid leave. Beyond these 2 weeks, employees may take up to an additional 10 weeks of leave only if they qualify under FMLA. And the proposed expanded provision, reason 3, an employee is eligible for paid sick leave of 100% of the duration of their documented COVID-19 illness for up to 6 weeks of paid leave by Franklin City Public Schools and 6 weeks of accrued paid leave. Okay. The next mandated provision, for reasons 4 and 6, an employee is eligible for 2 weeks of up to 80 hours of paid sick leave at 2/3 their regular pay without using their accrued paid leave. Beyond these 2 weeks, employees may take up to an additional 10 weeks of leave only if they qualify under FMLA. And the proposed expanded provision, For reasons 4 and 6, an employee is eligible for 2 weeks up to 80 hours of paid sick leave at 2/3 their regular pay without using their accrued paid leave. Beyond these 2 weeks, all employees may take up to an additional 10 weeks of leave under the FMLA. Accrued paid leave must be used if employees desire to continue their pay during this period. And the last mandated provision is for reason 5, an employee who has been employed for 30 business days is eligible for up to 12 weeks of leave. The first 2 weeks of such leave are paid. The remaining 10 weeks of leave will be paid by Franklin City Public Schools at 2/3 the employee's regular pay, up to $200 daily and $12,000 total. There are no proposed expanded provisions for reason 5. Are there any questions before we move forward about any of the provisions?
Anyone have any questions for Dr. Holloran in regards to the provisions, the proposed provisions? I think you're good to proceed, Dr. Holloran.
Ms. Moore? Okay, now we're going to address the guidelines for employees returning to work for the 2020-2021 school year. Due to COVID-19, Governor Northam recently announced the adoption of statewide emergency workplace standards proposed by Virginia's Department of Labor and Industry. This presentation will recommend to the Franklin City Public Schools School Board new emergency temporary standards that we are proposing for the 2020-2021 school year and beyond if necessary. Under the standards language, the Virginia Association of Counties Group Self-Insurance Risk Pool, VACORP, school members have employees that fall into high, medium, and low categories. On-campus educational settings are considered to be medium exposure risk. Central school office personnel could be classified as lower risk if their job tasks do not require contact with others within 6 feet. School nurse positions are classified as high risk if they are expected to provide healthcare services to anyone known or suspected to be infected with COVID-19. The health and safety of Franklin City Public Schools employees is one of our highest priorities as we continue planning for the reopening of school for the 2020-2021 school year. Franklin City Public Schools continue to monitor the evolving understanding of COVID-19 by health and medical experts and will adapt its policies and procedures as new information becomes available. We will continue to take steps to minimize potential risk in the workplace associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. To this end, we have developed guidelines for employees to return to work safely in our schools and buildings. Employees' guidelines for returning to work. Employees are expected to continue fulfilling their work obligations under their respective contracts or notification of employment memoranda for the 2020-2021 school year. Effective July 27, 2020, all employees working in 12-month contracted positions must complete a FCPS employee attestation. Excuse me. Attestation is late, I'm sorry, of health form and the employee agreement for self-screening of COVID-19 symptoms. These forms must be completed and submitted to the building level administrator. At the central office, these forms must be submitted to Dr. Natalie Holloran, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Federal Programs. When employees return to work, they will be expected to complete a FCPS employee of health form and the employee agreement for self-screening of COVID-19 symptoms. These forms must be completed and submitted to the building level administrator or immediate supervisor at central office. Employees must monitor symptoms before reporting to work. Employees who have a temperature of 100.4 degrees or above must stay home. The employee will notify their building principal or immediate supervisor regarding their absence. The employee will telework if possible. Temperatures of all employees will be taken with a non-contact thermometer upon entering their workspace. If employees visit other schools or offices in the division, their temperatures will be taken upon entry to the building. Employees visiting the central office in other schools and buildings for meetings must be escorted to and from the meeting location, and they must leave the premises immediately after their business has concluded. Employees must enter the central office, schools, and other buildings through a one entry point. At the central office, all employees must enter through the West 2nd Avenue entrance only. Schools and other locations will use appropriate signage to designate the entry point and temperature taking station at their respective locations. Employees are expected to practice social and physical distancing by ensuring 6 feet of separation between coworkers and between members of the public, and minimize face-to-face contact when possible. And employees are expected to wash their hands often and use hand sanitizer stations frequently. Masks are expected to be worn for all face-to-face contact and in all common areas of the central office, schools, and other buildings. Masks and other personal protective equipment will be provided by FCPS. For employees who have an office, masks are not required to be worn if you are in your own office and the door is closed. However, if you leave your office, a mask is expected to be worn. And employees are to refrain from handshaking or elbow or fist bumping with coworkers and visitors. Are there any questions about that section before we move forward?
Any questions so far for Dr. Holloran?
This is Andrea. Ward 3. My question would be in reference to Dr. Holloran, you mentioned the temperature checks. Don't know if Dr. Sterling has designated or principals designating the persons to take the temps for employees.
They can actually take their own. They would actually use a new glove. They would take the touchless device and they could actually take their own temperature.
Okay. And so when they take their temp, is somebody monitoring that? That means they take their temp, they have to report that to their building administrator, what their temp was, or how does that work as they're coming into the schools?
Yes, that attestation form is a weekly form that when they enter the building, they take their temperature and then they record their temperature at that time. The nurse will be there, but she does not have to take the temperature, but she will verify that that is the temperature.
Got you. Okay. And then my next question is in reference to, I think I haven't heard this tonight. If, you know, we've had a lot going on tonight. So if it's an oversight, but I haven't heard about the PPE, plexiglass, and supplies for the classrooms. Now, are they being ordered, have been ordered? How is that working?
Have been ordered. They have been ordered for our common areas. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
I have a question. This is Johnson. I have a question about the recording of the temperatures. And I don't know for certain, but I was under the impression that it's against HIPAA to actually record the temperatures. I'm a COVID screener where I work, and we are not allowed to record the temperatures. If it is above the 100.4, we do turn the person away, and it's up to them to report it to HR. They are not allowed in the facility, but we are not allowed to record the temperatures.
Well, on the attestation form, they turned that in. We are not required to have to take temperatures at all. The state gives us that flexibility, so you're exactly right. But to ensure, and this is just our presentation to you all, to have a safe, secure environment. If that's something that you would like us to review and take out, that's fine too. But right now, we are asking for all employees to record their temperatures and validate them with with the nurse and turn them in.
I just want to make sure that we're compliant. And if it's validated by the nurse or even someone else, I had to go through training. So even if there's someone else that doesn't have to be the nurse, but that can validate that it's not over the 100.4 or 100.4 over, however that's phrased. And I don't know if there are any screening questions or what have you to go with that. I'm okay with that. I'm really leery of violating any sort of, HIPAA.
All right, I appreciate that. Ms. Johnson, if you can work with us on providing us with some direction on the training that you took and the information that you have, the team would be greatly appreciated. Okay.
Sure, no problem. I'll forward what I have.
All right, appreciate it.
And also, Dr. Sterling, I believe it may be good for the school district to reach out to VDOE in reference to the HIPAA regulations for COVID.
Yeah, I have the stuff from the government and from the state of Virginia and the CDC. So you can reach out to VDOE, of course. I'm not saying not to do that, but I'll also forward what I have, and you can use all of that, none of that, whatever. I'm happy to share it with you.
We would love to have it. Thank you, Dr. Hollander. Thank you.
Yes, because now it's my understanding that the majority of the school districts are having the temperature checks. Whether or not they're having to record it is a different story. But the majority of the school divisions in Virginia, they are making it is mandated that they at least take the temps.
All right, we'll look into that. Are there any other questions? This helps us greatly. We appreciate it. All right, we're going to go ahead on and proceed, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
Absolutely, Dr. Sterling.
All right, Dr. Hollow.
Okay, now we're going to take a look at guidelines that employees must follow if they develop symptoms. An employee who develops symptoms associated with COVID-19, who tests positive for COVID-19, or who has been exposed to someone who is known to be positive for COVID-19 within the past 14 days must timely report these facts to his or her supervisor and not come to work until authorized to do so. To be exposed refers to any person who lives in the same household with the employee or anyone else with whom the employee has had close contact within 6 feet for at least 15 minutes during the 48 hours before the onset of the symptoms of the infected person. The Human Resource Department will make contact with the exposed employee for additional documentation and detailed next steps before they return to the work site.
I'm going to stop right there just to get some information and clarification. When you talk about additional documentation and detail for next steps to work, we are strongly, and I just found this out again with additional training, we have to strongly recommend, we can strongly recommend that they turn in their documentation, which may possibly be a negative COVID test or they don't have symptoms anymore, but we cannot require it for them to return to work. I just found that out. Okay, go ahead.
If an employee begins to feel ill with COVID-19 related to symptoms while working, they must notify administration or their immediate supervisor and immediately leave the workplace and seek medical help. The principal will immediately enact a response plan to clean and sanitize the area where the employee was located. Employees who are ill and seeking a diagnosis through testing should self-isolate at home and follow the advice of the medical practitioner regarding self-care, when to seek emergency care, and when to return to work. As soon as practicably, employees who have been diagnosed with the virus should contact Dr. Natalie Holloran, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Federal Programs, to review leave options and discuss required paperwork, doctor's notes, returning to work, etc. If employees have been exposed to a person who has been diagnosed with or is exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19, they must notify their administrator or immediate supervisor, leave the workplace, stay home for 14 days after their last contact with the infected person, and contact Dr. Natalie Holloran, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources and Federal Programs, to review leave options. As soon as possible, administrators should contact Dr. Holloran and Mr. Jeff Ryder for all matters dealing with employees testing positive or who became ill at work. Dr. Holloran will contact the Virginia Department of Health to discuss next steps for contact tracing and other protocols. If employees think or know they have COVID-19 and they had symptoms, they can be with others after at least 10 days since symptoms first appeared, and at least 24 hours with no fever, without fever reducing medication, and symptoms have improved. Depending on the healthcare provider's advice and availability of testing, we encourage employees to retest to see if they still have COVID-19. If you will be tested, you can be around others when you have no fever. So if you don't have a fever, you can of course be around others. Respiratory symptoms have to improve, and you need to receive at least 2 negative results in a row, at least 24 hours apart. Employees cannot return to work without providing medical documentation.
And that's the new caveat that has changed, because it can only be strongly recommended. So board members, that will be tweaked before we actually provide that to the public.
Thank you for that clarification again, Dr. Sterling. Okay, so again, if employees tested positive for COVID-19 but had no symptoms and continue to have no symptoms, they can be with others after 10 days have passed since the test was administered. Depending on your healthcare provider's advice and availability of testing, you might get tested to see if you still have COVID-19. And once you're tested, you can be around others after you receive 2 negative test results in a row, at least 24 hours apart. Employees, again, we recommend that they bring documentation, but it's not mandated.
Yes.
And now we have guidelines for visitors. Effective Tuesday, September 2nd, 2020, the Franklin City Public Schools Central Office, schools, and other buildings will be open to the public by appointment only. In collaboration with the building administrators, staff at each school, office, or building will develop their own appointment schedules. Upon arrival for their appointment, all visitors must complete a FCPS visitor health form and have their temperature taken upon entering FCPS schools, offices, and buildings. Visitors who have scheduled meetings at Franklin City Public Schools or buildings must be escorted to and from the meeting locations, and they must leave the premises immediately after their business has concluded. And I believe this is the last slide. Guidelines again for returning to work. We have an employee help desk line. If you have questions or concerns regarding the above guidance or other human resource matters, you may leave a message on the dedicated Department of Human Resources employee help desk line by calling the number noted below, the numbers noted in the presentation.
And we will have and you can stop right there. And we were working with Mr. Spa, and he is developing a dedicated healthcare line for our employees if they have any questions. And also we are going to have an email that will be specifically dedicated to any of this information that we have, and it will go directly to the HR department. Are there any questions?
This is Andrea Leonard, Ward 3. Question, Dr. Sterling, and maybe I missed this as well. In reference to scheduling, especially, I'm referring to middle and high school students. Now, will parents make appointments with counselors to come to the school, or will this be completed virtually?
It will be completed virtually and via tele. So all of the schedules, if anything has to be made or adjustments, our counselors will reach out to the home. And if there is no answer, of course, leave a message, and everything will be done virtually. And the schedule will be emailed to the student.
Okay. Is that mentioned in the plan? I don't recall seeing that.
No, that's the logistical part. Right now,
Okay.
we're just getting the what the parents want. Virtual, hybrid,
Okay.
we're doing all of that first.
Got you. Okay. But that will be included, the scheduling.
Yes, ma'am. That will be included.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions in regards to the returning to work guidelines that have been laid out thus far? Okay, hearing none, Dr. Sterling, right on back to the rest of the presentation.
All right, thank you. And we're just going to bring that back with those necessary corrections. And we appreciate our board members going to support us with critical information. And then we'll probably have that on the consent agenda at the next meeting. At this time, I want to just give you an overview to talk about our employees and where they're coming from. And this is just a map of their residence. Even though our COVID numbers are low, we have a significant number of people coming into us from all over, you know, the Tidewater and Hampton Roads area. So as you can see, we have a large population, which I really like to see in Cortland, Isle of Wight, Windsor, and this is where our teachers are coming from. We have a cluster coming out of Suffolk, and a cluster during Chesapeake and Norfolk, which you know, and as far as Virginia, which you know, these are some hot spot areas. So with that, we have to take all of that into consideration while we were building our, you know, our recommendations for employees to come back to work. And we also have employees as low as Roanoke Rapids and way down in Ahoskie in Virginia. So just giving you a visual where our employees are coming from. And even though we're low, where our employees coming from, they have significant numbers of COVID cases. Are there any questions?
Dr. Sterling.
Yes, ma'am.
This is just food for thought. How set in stone is the school start date?
It says set in stone is what the board agrees on. That's it.
I was just asking, and you all have done a phenomenal job in all that you have done to prepare and to plan. Excuse me. And we're 3 weeks out, and it's all new to us. So that was just a question that was going around in my head. How set in stone is the school start date, and is it feasible to consider a later start date? And if so, how would that impact the overall calendar?
Well, right now, our start date for face-to-face is not going to be until November. And it may not even be in November if the board comes back and says, you know, we need to push it out. But I appreciate your comment. And just to give you more clarification, we are starting our professional development training virtually. So our teachers will not have to come into Franklin, but we're going to do it online.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions in regards to the 5.4, the Human Resources and COVID Response Plan?
I'm looking. This is Andrea Hollander. I'm looking at this as a request for board approval for FFCRA. Just want to make sure that this language, it says here to expand employee pay. Are we expanding employee pay?
No, you're accepting the modifications from the Department of Labor for FMLA. And you're not expanding employee pay unless they meet one of the 6 criteria. There's 6 individual criteria that they can apply for FMLA under. And under each criteria, they can get 2/3 of their pay, they can get full pay without using their sick leave. All of the criteria is spelled out, and that comes from the Department of Labor.
Okay, so let's say that again, because on the document here at the bottom, that's exactly what it says. It says to expand employee pay, but that's not what you're saying, Dr. Sterling. So you're saying that the recommendation is to accept modification of what now?
Of the Family Medical Leave Act.
Right, okay.
To December 2020. That's what the federal government has approved it until.
Okay, just wanted to make sure because I'm on page 28. Do you see where I am, Ms. Phillips?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and so I want to make sure that that wording is correct.
I can clear that up a little bit. The expansion of pay, where that comes in, back on slides 7 and 8, there were mandated provisions that fall under FFCRA, and then there are proposed expansions that we're looking at as well. So, for instance, the proposed expansion on page 8 would be the mandated is that they have to receive 2 weeks of paid sick leave at 2/3 of their regular pay that does not utilize their accrued leave. What the proposed expansion is we're looking at the same thing, but beyond those 2 weeks, we're looking at additional coverage of their pay. Well, no, an addition of 10 weeks under FMLA. And accrued leave can be used. It was I'm sorry, go back up to page 7, Ms. Moore. The bottom one. For reason 3, the mandated is that they have to be granted 2 weeks of paid sick leave at 100% of their pay without using any accrued. And then beyond that, they would have to take any of their accrued leave if they wanted pay during their FMLA. What we're looking at as a proposal for that is the same thing for the first 2 weeks, but looking at extending that for up to 6 weeks. If you follow that.
I do follow that. So then, as Dr. Sterling stated, the recommendation for accepting the modification of the Family Medical Leave Act through December 22nd, 2020, takes care of all of this.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. Thank you.
Until the Department of Labor comes out and expands it. But right now,
Yes.
they just said December 2020.
Any other questions or comments? Do we have a motion in regards to this item?
This is Andrea Hollander, Ward 3. I move to accept the modifications of the Family Medical Leave Act through December 2020.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, nays have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, aye.
Ward 3, Andrea Leonard, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Carrie Johnson at large, aye.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries.
Thank you, board members. It's so refreshing to have, to work with policy and HR, because this information has to be mailed to all employees also. The Department of Labor wants you to have full-size posters in all of your buildings. So this is information that has to completely be transparent for employees at this time in the pandemic. So thank you for that.
And thank you very much, Dr. Sterling. Anything else to be added into your report, or are you good?
I'm done. Thank you. I know it was a lot. I appreciate this. It was a what do you call it, a marathon, but appreciate it.
All right, moving next on to business by school board members. We'll start off first. Does anyone have any business by school board members to share? I have a few things that I would like to just highlight. First, I do want to congratulate. We had a couple of students that actually graduated this summer from summer school through summer school. And I just wanted to take an opportunity to acknowledge those students and congratulate them on their graduation. Unfortunately, with COVID and everything that's gone on, they were not able to have their graduation ceremony. So I did want to give them an opportunity to publicly be acknowledged. So thank you very much to our students that did graduate, and congratulations to them as well on such a tremendous accomplishment. From my perspective, graduations are always very important and they're wonderful events, but the summer school graduations mean more to me than the regular graduations, because I know those students really worked hard to get that diploma. They put in a little extra effort and went above and beyond. So congratulations to them. One other thing that I will mention, if all board members did not see it, but it came out this week from the state that accreditation for the 2020-2021 school year would be waived. So I just wanted to put that on the radar. If you hadn't seen that already, there was an email that came out from VSBA on that. So you may want to go back and take a look at that. Not to be lost in the mix, but we had a partner and employee within the school division that we lost last night, Mr. Ray Williams. For those of you that had not had the opportunity to meet Mr. Williams, he was such a refreshing person to be around. He was so optimistic and absolutely loved our students. The last conversation I had with him, he was talking about retirement and that he was not ready to retire because he was so dedicated to these students, that this was where he needed to be, and he felt like he had to be here for these young men and women. So to his family, to those that were close to him, please know that we offer our condolences, and that Mr. Williams was special to us too, and will always hold a special place within Franklin City Public Schools. Additionally, we have VSBA governance training tomorrow. So just wanted to put that up there. I'm sure that's under upcoming dates as well. And Dr. Sterling, I'm going to toot a horn a little bit. Ring the bell, as you say.
Ring the bell.
I wanted to make everyone, other board members, know that Dr. Sterling has been asked to present at the VSBA annual convention this year and do a program on superintendent and board relations. So she and I both have been tapped to present for that. So I just wanted to share that with everyone. And what they're looking at, it's going to be to discuss what we've learned as a governance team.
Yep.
So I wanted to put that on the radar. And that's all the items that I had to share. Does anyone else have anything? If not, moving up next, because I know everybody is about probably ready to go to sleep because it has been a long day. Moving up next is the governance handbook. This has been a long time in the making. All of us may remember back about a year and a half ago, maybe a little over a year ago, we had a governance training where we looked at and went over our governance handbook, and we never went through and adopted revisions to that. Ms. Moore has brought up, and she's scrolling through the governance handbook with all of the markups that we did together with VSBA's assistance. And in addition to that, Ms. Moore also has another document that actually goes through section by section and highlights the item and what the change will be. The question for the board is, does the board want to proceed with reviewing this and adopting it? Do we want to go back and look at the governance handbook and make sure that all revisions are still applicable, or that if anything else needs to change? Because of course, as we look at things like a vision and goals, those things will need to change within the governance handbook as well.
This is Andrea again. Hall Leonard, I would say to look at it, to review it, to see if changes need to be made and all of that good stuff.
Okay. Anyone else?
I agree, but at the next meeting.
Well,
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Agree.
Absolutely.
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 Well, and that's going to be my next suggestion. Do we want to even entertain looking at this and mining through it at a regular meeting, or do we want to set up a special meeting just to go through the governance handbook?
I think a special meeting would do it justice better.
Yeah, I agree.
Agreed.
I agree.
That's what a regular meeting.
If you would indulge me, I would almost like to wait until we have new board members in place, because that will give us an opportunity all at one time to actually go through the governance handbook and all of us be brought up to speed on what we should be doing as a governance team at the same time. So I will, if no one objects, then I will look at putting this on, because we did not have a motion set forth for this tonight. I don't think we just had it on the agenda. Yes, no motion. So we will revisit this once we have all board members present and accounted for, and we'll schedule a separate meeting that we can all sit down and go through it together. Okay. Or virtually, as the case may be. All right, moving up next, upcoming events. I already touched on VSBA board training. That should be Friday, August the 7th. Not the 6th. At 9 o'clock. Everyone should have received an email from Sam Bosterman with VSBA with your connection information for that. 9 to 2. Historically in the past, we've not quite gone to 2 o'clock. So hopefully it'll be after this long meeting. Hopefully it'll be a quick meeting tomorrow. But I know we always bring a lot out of those when we do have them. And then of course, VSBA annual convention, just to put that on everyone's radar, is November 18th through 20th, and that is virtual this year. One of the good things about that, because all of us have attended in the past, and I know I have, so I'm sure some of you have as well. There have come times when there have been multiple sessions at the same time that I wanted to attend. And I had to pick one, which means I missed out on some other ones. And a few of us before, I know Dr. Hall Leonard and I have gotten together before, and we've kind of tag teamed, and we've got, one of us has gone to one and one has gone to the other, and then we bring information back to each other. The great thing about it being virtual this year, after the convention is over, you're going to get the link so that you can go back and view all 30 sessions that they're having. So if you miss out on something, you'll be able to go back and catch it. So if you do want to attend that, please go ahead and reach out to Ms. Moore and let her know so that she can go ahead and get you registered for that. There's a couple of other things coming up as well. The Legislative Advocacy Conference is September the 24th, virtually, of course. And there's some webinars coming up in the future as well. So be sure to go out and I know VSBA does email us on those, but also go out and look at their website, and the full listing of all opportunities that they have are on the website as well. Anything else for upcoming events? If not, we have a couple of minutes out there from July the 2nd, as well as from July the 16th. So those were for our meetings last month. Ms. Moore, does that have us up to date on minutes?
I will be sending you another set of minutes this week.
Okay. And of course, those will all be for review so that we can look at getting our minutes approved at our next meeting. Any questions on minutes? All right, one last thing before we adjourn, just as a reminder, as we're trying to become used to the new norm with our staff coming back in buildings at times and with people visiting our buildings in the area in which we live, just a reminder to maintain your social distancing, to be sure that you're wearing your mask, especially when you're around people or in public places, and not just for you, but for the safety and consideration of all those that you may come in contact with. And just a reminder to stay safe and try to stay as healthy as possible during this time. And if Dr. Shelton, I need to get with you because I have a mask for you, and all other board members should have a lovely, beautiful Franklin Broncos mask that the high school has graciously supplied. And if anyone else, and actually, there is the mask. I'm trying to get it at an angle where you can see it. It has the logo on one side and then says Franklin Broncos on the other. Because I actually liked it so much, I went and bought another one. So if anyone is interested, they do have them at Franklin High School. You can contact the office at Franklin High School. They are $10 each, and they are actually very comfortable masks.
Yeah.
All right. That brings us down to number 7, which is adjournment. So we're going to do this a little bit differently. If I hear no objections, then the meeting will so be adjourned for the night. Do I hear any objections?
No objections.
Done.
None.
Then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for hanging in.
Have a good evening, everybody. Good evening.
Good evening.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank
Good
you.
Good night.
Good night.